The hall was filled with light, laughter, and music. Golden balloons floated near the ceiling, and a large banner read, "Happy 80th Birthday." Tables were neatly arranged, covered with white cloth and expensive decorations. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Guests walked in wearing fine clothes, holding gift boxes and smiling for photos. Many of them whispered to each other, impressed by how grand the celebration was. They praised the daughter for arranging such a beautiful event. Some even said the party looked more like a business celebration than an old man's birthday. The man whose birthday it was stood quietly near the back of the room. He was 80 years old. His hair was thin and white, his hands slightly shaking as he held onto a small gift bag. His suit was clean but old, carefully pressed, worn only on special days. He watched people laugh and talk, but no one seemed to notice him standing there. This party was supposed to be for him. Yet, he felt like a guest. He looked around the room slowly. The faces, the lights, the loud voices, it all felt overwhelming. His ears caught pieces of conversations. She did such a great job with this party. She really made something of herself. Can you believe this is for her father? Each word felt like a quiet reminder of how far apart their lives had become. The old man lowered his eyes. His mind drifted back many years, to long days of hard work, tired nights, and silent sacrifices. He remembered holding his child's hand while walking to school. He remembered skipping meals so she could eat better. He remembered promising himself that no matter what happened, he would always be proud of her. Even now. Suddenly, the music stopped. The daughter stepped forward and picked up the microphone. She was well-dressed, confident, and comfortable in front of a crowd. The room became quiet as all eyes turned toward her. She smiled. At first, her voice was warm. She thanked everyone for coming. She talked about how busy life was, how hard it had been to plan such a big event. Guests nodded along, listening politely. Then her tone slowly changed. She started talking about her childhood. At first, it sounded harmless. A few light jokes. A few laughs from the crowd. But then the jokes became sharper. She spoke about growing up with very little. About embarrassment. About how she had to struggle to become successful. She laughed as she mentioned her father's old job, calling it small and unimpressive. Some guests laughed. Others shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The old man felt his chest tighten. He stood still, his face calm, but inside, something was breaking. Every word felt heavier than the last. He did not look up. He did not interrupt. He had learned long ago that silence was sometimes easier than speaking. The daughter continued, unaware, or unwilling to care. She talked about how she had risen above her past. How she had built a better life on her own. She ended one sentence with a smile and said, "We all start somewhere, right?" More laughter followed. The old man's fingers tightened around the gift bag. Inside that bag was something simple. Something small. Something he had kept for years. He had wondered many times whether to bring it or not. Whether this was the right moment. Now, standing there, he wasn't so sure. He looked up briefly. Across the room, people were watching him. Some with curiosity. Some with pity. A few with regret. No one spoke for him. The daughter finished her speech with a proud smile and raised her glass. Guests clapped. The music began again. But the old man did not move. He took a slow breath. After a moment, he did something no one expected. He stepped forward. The music faded. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. The old man raised his hand slightly, asking for attention. His voice had not yet been heard, but the room somehow understood. He was about to speak. And for the first time that night, the small gift bag in his hand no longer looked small at all. The room slowly became quiet. People looked at each other, unsure of what was happening. The daughter stood near the microphone, surprised to see her father step forward. She did not expect him to move, let alone speak. The old man stood still for a moment. His heart beat fast, but his face remained calm. He had lived through harder moments than this. Still, standing there at 80 years old, in front of so many people, was not easy. Before he could say anything, the daughter laughed softly. "Don't worry," she said, smiling toward the guests. "He's not much of a speaker." A few people chuckled. The words were small, but they cut deep. The old man felt it, not anger, not hatred, but something heavier. Disappointment. Not in her success, but in how far she had drifted from the child he once knew. She took the microphone again. "I just want everyone to understand," she continued, "that life wasn't always easy for me. I had to work hard to get where I am. Nothing was handed to me." She paused and looked toward her father. "Well, almost nothing." Laughter filled the room again, louder this time. Some guests laughed openly. Others forced a smile, unsure whether it was right. A few looked down at their plates, feeling uncomfortable but saying nothing. The old man stood there quietly, his hands clasped in front of him. Inside his mind, memories rushed in. He remembered cold mornings when he left home before sunrise. Long hours doing work no one respected. Coming home tired, yet still smiling so his child would not worry. He remembered holding back tears when he couldn't afford gifts, telling her that love mattered more. He had never told anyone these things. Not even her. The daughter continued speaking, unaware of the storm inside him. She spoke about embarrassment, how she used to avoid bringing friends home. How she promised herself she would never live like that again. How she had built a life that demanded respect. Each sentence pushed the old man further into silence. Not because he was weak, but because he loved her. The room felt divided now. Some guests began whispering. Others watched the old man more closely. They noticed how straight he stood. How he did not look angry. How his eyes carried something deeper than shame. One woman near the front pressed her lips together. A man near the back crossed his arms, clearly uncomfortable. Still, no one spoke. The daughter finally finished her words and placed the microphone back on its stand. She raised her glass again, smiling proudly, waiting for applause. The clapping this time was slower. Shorter. The old man took a breath. He had planned to stay quiet that night. To smile politely. To leave early. That had been his plan. But plans change. He took one step forward. Then another. The sound of his shoes against the floor seemed louder than the music ever was. People noticed. Conversation stopped. The daughter turned, her smile slowly fading. He stood near the microphone now. Up close, people could see his hands shaking slightly. They could see the lines on his face, not just from age, but from years of holding things in. He looked at the crowd first. Then at his daughter. "I won't take much time," he said softly. His voice was not loud, but it was clear. The room leaned in without realizing it. The daughter frowned. "This isn't necessary," she said quietly. He looked at her, gently. "I think it is." Silence filled the room. He reached down and lifted the small gift bag onto the table beside him. The paper was slightly worn, the handles thin from being held too tightly. Some guests leaned forward. Others held their breath. The daughter looked at the bag, confused and annoyed. "What is that?" she asked. The old man rested his hand on the bag. "It's something I've carried for a long time," he said. "I thought tonight might be the right time." The daughter laughed once more, nervously this time. "Is this some kind of joke?" He shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. It's the truth. The room was completely silent now. All eyes were on the old man. All attention was on the gift bag. And no one yet understood that what was about to be opened would change everything. The silence in the room felt heavy. No one spoke. No one moved. The music had stopped completely, and even the sound of plates and glasses seemed to disappear. All eyes were now on the old man standing beside the table, his hand resting on the small gift bag. He did not rush. He took a slow breath, as if gathering strength from somewhere deep inside him. "I'm not good with speeches," he said quietly. "So I'll keep this simple." A few guests nodded without realizing it. His voice was soft, but there was something steady about it. Something honest. He looked around the room. Faces stared back at him, some curious, some uncomfortable, some filled with regret. Then his eyes rested on his daughter. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he continued. "You didn't have to be here, but you chose to come. That means something." The daughter crossed her arms slightly. She did not interrupt, but her impatience was clear. The old man smiled faintly. "This party is beautiful," he said. "It really is. I never imagined something like this for myself." A few guests exchanged glances. They could hear the sincerity in his words. He paused, then added, "My daughter planned all of this. She worked hard. She always works hard." The daughter looked surprised. "I am proud of her," he said, looking directly at her now. "I always have been." The room grew even quieter. No one expected that. He did not defend himself. He did not argue. He did not mention the jokes or the laughter from earlier. Instead, he stood there and spoke with respect. "I know I wasn't a perfect father," he continued. "I made mistakes. I didn't always have the right words. I didn't always have enough money." His voice shook slightly, but he did not stop. "There were many times I wanted to explain myself," he said. "Many times I wanted to say how hard I tried. But I stayed quiet." He looked down for a moment, then back up. "Not because I was ashamed," he said softly. "But because I didn't want my struggles to become her burden." The daughter shifted her weight. Her expression changed, less confident now, more uncertain. The old man placed both hands on the table. "I believe that if she could walk forward without looking back, then I had done my job," he said. Even if she never understood why. Some guests felt a tightness in their throats. He reached into the gift bag but did not pull anything out yet. "These things," he said, tapping the side of the bag gently, "were never meant to be shown tonight." He smiled faintly again. "They were meant to stay with me." The daughter spoke up sharply. "Then why bring them?" He met her eyes calmly. "Because sometimes," he said, "silence can turn into misunderstanding." The room felt frozen. He turned slightly so everyone could hear him clearly. "I never asked for praise," he said. "I never asked to be thanked. All I ever wanted was for her to live without fear." He paused again, his breathing slow and careful. "I see now that my silence may have created another kind of distance," he said. "And that is something I regret." The daughter's lips parted slightly. She looked confused, caught between pride and something else she could not name. The old man reached into the gift bag at last and pulled out a small stack of old photographs tied together with a thin string. Gasps moved through the room. "These are not trophies," he said gently. "They are memories." He placed the photos on the table but did not open them yet. "There is more," he added, glancing at the bag again. "Much more." He looked at his daughter one final time before stepping back slightly. "I didn't come here to embarrass you," he said. "I came to give you something I never gave before." The daughter swallowed hard. "What?" she asked quietly. He placed his hand on the gift bag once more. "The truth." The room held its breath. Because everyone could feel it now. Whatever was inside that bag was not just a gift. It was a lifetime. No one spoke. The old photographs lay on the table, tied together with a thin string that had yellowed with age. The daughter stared at them, unsure whether to touch them. The room felt smaller now, as if everyone had moved closer without taking a step. The old man gently untied the string. "These pictures were taken long before tonight," he said. "Before the success. Before the distance." He picked up the first photo and held it up. It showed a much younger man standing outside a small home, holding a little girl on his shoulders. Both were smiling. The background was simple. Nothing fancy. Just life. A soft murmur moved through the guests. The daughter's expression shifted. She recognized the photo. She had seen it once before, long ago, but had never paid much attention to it. The old man placed the photo on the table and picked up another. "This one," he said, "was taken on your first day of school." In the picture, the girl wore a worn backpack. The man stood beside her, proud but tired. His shoes were scuffed. His clothes were plain. "I remember that morning," he said quietly. "You were nervous. You didn't want to let go of my hand." The daughter's eyes dropped to the table. The old man continued, one photo at a time. A birthday with a small cake. A graduation day with no crowd. A hospital hallway late at night. "These moments may not look important," he said. "But they were everything to me." He paused, then looked at the guests. "I kept these not to remind myself of what I gave up," he said. "But to remember why it was worth it." The room felt heavy with emotion now. Even those who had laughed earlier sat in silence. The daughter finally reached out and touched one of the photos. Her hand trembled. "Why are you showing these now?" she asked, her voice lower than before. The old man took a slow breath. "Because there are things that don't show in pictures," he replied. "And those things are in here." He reached into the gift bag again and pulled out a thin folder. It was worn at the edges, clearly old and carefully kept. He placed it beside the photos. "These are papers," he said. "Not exciting. Not impressive." The daughter frowned slightly. "What kind of papers?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he opened the folder and slid out a few documents. The print was faded, the corners folded from years of handling. "I never talked about money," he said calmly. "I didn't want it to be a reason for pride or shame." He turned one document toward her. It showed records of long hours worked. Extra shifts. Jobs taken late at night. Jobs taken far away. "I worked wherever I could," he said. "Whenever I could." The daughter's breathing slowed as she read. Another paper showed loan records. Not taken for himself, but for education. Fees. Training. "I signed these," he said softly, "so you wouldn't have to." A quiet sound escaped the daughter's throat. Not a word. Not a cry. Just air. Guests leaned closer now, drawn into the truth unfolding in front of them. "But that's not all," the old man said. He reached into the gift bag once more. Only one envelope remained. It was thicker than the others and sealed. The daughter stared at it. Her confident posture from earlier was gone. Her arms now hung loosely at her sides. "What's in that one?" she asked. The old man rested his hand on the envelope. "That," he said, "is the part one never wanted you to find out this way." The room felt like it had stopped breathing. He slid the envelope across the table toward her. "You should open it," he said. The daughter hesitated. Her fingers hovered over the envelope, unsure. Everyone watched. The old man stepped back slightly, giving her space. "Go on," he said gently. The daughter took the envelope and slowly broke the seal. As she pulled out the contents, her face changed completely. Color drained from her cheeks. Her eyes widened. And for the first time that night, she could not speak. Because what she was holding was not just paper. It was the proof of a lifetime she had never seen. The daughter stared at the papers in her hands. At first, she didn't understand what she was seeing. Numbers. Dates. Signatures. Her father's signature. Again and again. The room remained silent. Slowly, she began to read more carefully. Her hands started to shake. The old man did not speak. He let the truth speak for itself. The first document showed payments made over many years. Quiet payments. Consistent payments. All connected to her education, her early career, and moments she believed she had handled alone. Another page revealed something she never expected. A loan taken out long ago, not for a home, not for comfort, but to save her from dropping out when money ran out. The address listed was hers. The responsibility listed was his. Her chest tightened. She flipped to the next paper. It showed a debt that had already been paid in full. Paid by him. Without her knowing. A soft sound came from her lips. Not a word. Not a cry. Just disbelief. The guests could sense it now. Whatever was written there was heavy. Real. Life-changing. I didn't want you to worry, the old man finally said. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. You had enough on your mind back then. The daughter looked up at him slowly. You paid this? She asked. He nodded gently. There were moments, he continued, when you were close to giving up. I could see it in your eyes. But I knew if you stopped, you would always wonder what could have been. Tears filled her eyes, though she tried to hold them back. I didn't tell you, he said, because I wanted you to believe in yourself. Not in me. The daughter lowered herself into a chair behind her. Her confident posture was gone. Her proud smile from earlier felt like it belonged to someone else. A guest near the front wiped their eyes. Another shook their head slowly, filled with regret. The old man took a small step forward. There's more, he said, quietly. She looked up again, afraid and curious at the same time. He pointed to one final page. That one, he said, is about the house. Her breath caught. The document showed that long before she bought her home, a large payment had already been made. Not from a bank. Not from an investor. From him. I sold the only property I had, he said simply. I didn't need much space anymore. The daughter covered her mouth. Memories flooded back, how her father suddenly moved to a smaller place, how he said it was easier to manage, how she never questioned it. I thought, her voice broke. I thought you were just, comfortable. He smiled softly. I was, he said. Because you were. The room felt heavy with emotion. No one dared to speak. The daughter stood up slowly, holding the papers close to her chest. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked. The old man looked at her with tired, loving eyes. Because I didn't do it to be seen, he said. I did it to be done. Her shoulders shook. Tears finally fell, one after another, onto the papers she now realized carried a lifetime of quiet love. I said things tonight, she whispered. I laughed. Her words failed her. The old man shook his head gently. This isn't about tonight, he said. It's about understanding. She took a step toward him. Then another. The room waited. She stopped in front of him, her head lowered. I didn't know, she said through tears. I really didn't know. He reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. I know, he replied. That was when the room truly broke. Not with noise. Not with applause. But with emotion. Because in that moment, everyone understood something powerful. The man they had laughed at earlier was not weak. He had been carrying an entire life of sacrifice in silence. And the daughter who had once stood proudly at the microphone now stood humbled by a truth she could never unsee. The room remained still. No music. No whispers. Just the sound of quiet breathing and a few soft sobs that no one tried to hide. The daughter stood in front of her father, holding the papers like they might disappear if she let go. Her shoulders shook as she tried to steady herself. "I thought I did everything on my own," she said slowly. "I told myself that story for years." Her father listened without interrupting. "I convinced myself that I had escaped something," she continued, her voice trembling. "That my past was something to be ashamed of." She looked up at him, tears running freely now. "But it wasn't my past I was ashamed of," she said. "It was my fear." The guests watched quietly, understanding they were witnessing something deeply personal. "I was afraid," she admitted, "that if people knew where I came from, they wouldn't respect me." She paused, swallowing hard. "So I pushed it away," she said. "And I pushed you away with it." The old man nodded gently. "I could see that," he said. "But I hoped time would soften it." She let out a shaky breath. "Instead, it made me harder," she said. She took a step closer. "I used your silence as proof that you didn't matter," she whispered. "And tonight, I turned that into cruelty." Her father's eyes softened, not with pain, but with understanding. "We all protect ourselves in different ways," he said calmly. "Yours was pride. Mine was silence." The daughter lowered her head. "I'm sorry," she said, the words heavy and honest. "Not just for tonight. For all the years I didn't ask. For all the times I didn't listen." She reached out and gently held his hand. The simple act broke something open in the room. A quiet wave of emotion passed through the guests. Some wiped their eyes. Others looked down, thinking of their own families. The old man squeezed her hand back. "I never needed an apology," he said. "I needed you to be at peace." She shook her head. "But you deserve one," she replied. "You deserve more than silence." She turned slowly toward the guests. "I owe all of you an apology too," she said. "What I said earlier came from ignorance and arrogance." She looked back at her father. "I forgot who carried me when I couldn't walk," she said. "Who stayed awake when I was sick. Who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Her voice broke again. "I forgot," she said, "that success doesn't erase sacrifice." The old man stepped closer and pulled her into a gentle embrace. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was quiet. And that made it powerful. They stood there for a long moment, father and daughter, holding each other as years of distance slowly softened. No one clapped. No one spoke. They didn't need to. When they finally stepped apart, the daughter wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "I don't expect forgiveness to fix everything," she said softly. "But I want to start again." The old man smiled. "That's all I ever wanted," he said. The tension that had filled the room earlier was gone now, replaced by something warmer. Something real. The guests slowly returned to their seats. Conversations did not resume right away. People needed time to process what they had seen. The party continued, but it felt different. Quieter. More thoughtful. Later that night, after the hall began to empty, the daughter walked beside her father toward the exit. She slowed her steps to match his. "I meant what I said," she told him. "I don't want to lose any more time." He nodded. "Neither do I," he replied. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, she looked back at the building one last time. That night had started with pride. It ended with truth. And though the pain could not be erased, something far more important had been restored. Understanding. Life did not change overnight. The next morning, the old man returned to the store just as he always had. He wore the same simple uniform, arrived before sunrise, and moved quietly through the empty aisles. To anyone watching, nothing looked different. But everything was. He pushed the mop slowly across the floor, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Work, to him, was never about proving something. It was about staying connected to the world he built and the people within it. Across town, his daughter began her day differently. She still dressed neatly, still walked into her office with confidence, but her eyes were open in a new way. She noticed things she had ignored before: the security guard who greeted everyone, the cleaning staff working before meetings began, the delivery workers carrying heavy boxes. She looked at them and felt respect instead of distance. At lunch, she sat quietly while her coworkers discussed status and promotions. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to impress anyone. That evening, she visited her father again. This time, she arrived without hesitation. They sat together at the kitchen table, sharing a simple meal. No suits. No titles. Just honesty. "I've been thinking," she said. "I spent so long chasing approval that I forgot to value people." He nodded. Many people confuse success with height. They forget it's built on foundation. She smiled. "You never stopped building, did you?" He shook his head. "I never stopped remembering." In the weeks that followed, changes began to show, quietly, just like he preferred. She volunteered to work closer to the ground level at her firm. She listened more. She spoke with purpose. When someone judged a job or a person, she challenged it, calmly, respectfully. She didn't announce her father's success. She didn't post about it. She didn't need to. Because the lesson wasn't about revealing who he was. It was about understanding who she was becoming. One afternoon, she visited the store again. This time, she stood beside him as he worked. Customers passed by, unaware of who he truly was. And that was fine. She took the mop from his hands. "Let me help," she said. He smiled, not because she was finally impressed by him, but because she finally understood. As they worked together, she realized something important. Dignity doesn't come from position. Respect doesn't come from titles. And wealth means nothing if it separates you from humanity. Later that day, she returned to work with a lighter heart. She no longer measured people by what they did, but by how they did it. The old man, meanwhile, continued his routine. Not as an owner. Not as a symbol. But as a man who believed that honest work was never something to be ashamed of. And that was the greatest lesson he could ever teach.